first, another word from the big fella.
Thank you, Mike, and a good Friday to you all. I don't know about you, but I sure missed the gig. Let's take a moment now to look back, sit with our memories of the gig, and appreciate that there was ever a gig in the first place. Here are 2 video clips of live musical performance taken in November of 2019 when we were on our first Honest to Goodness tour. They were taken in the loft above a tool shed in Grants Pass, Oregon that the owner of was kind enough to put us up in for the night. In this first clip, you will hear the tune Life in Color from our pretty okay album You Can Never Have a Long Enough Head Start. Please enjoy.
Responsibility of the fear of going outside. Friends all together, our first taste of freedom before being slapped in the face by the realities of adulthood. It was bliss. Everything looks nice through nostalgia-colored glasses, but I had all the same problems then as I do now. Looking backwards is futile self-sabotage. I'll be fine.
Now, let's take a moment to talk about DIY spaces and their importance. What many people don't know is that the reason that I, Sasquatch, have been so historically reclusive is that my hometown DIY space was unfairly closed before its time when I was a youth. And as a result, I went into a tailspin and ran away to the forests of the greater Pacific Northwest. You can help prevent this fate from befalling the youth of today by doing all in your power to support your local DIY and all-ages spaces. And now, a cut from 2018's Approaching Bearable, This is I'm Sorry.
They're pins. They're wearable. 1.5 inches wide. We've had them for years. $10. www.theveraproject.org/store.
With how long I've been driving, I'll have to be getting close. And then I turn another corner, realize that I never know. I keep on pressing harder, I'm trying to get there soon. burn them all and send them to the ground. You could send my ashes to the places that I've never been and I'll never want to go. Take my time to you. Do you think I am or not before I'll let you down easy? And I keep wondering if I'll have anything good to say to anyone. And I could come and tell you the same thing, no, I never will. Right there for me. I hope that you look at the stars when it's cool enough you can see who you are. to my soul. She's the only one who knows. Hope you look up soon. Don't forget about my baby, the moon. I got time, but I know that you can tell. I don't miss you, but I hope you admit. I got time, but I know that you can tell.
Ended it on a strong note.
DIY spaces are important to me and my band because they're inclusive and because they're community driven. And the people that operate them do so out of a genuine desire to foster creativity and expression for everybody in their own community. So if you would like to help, you have the means to help everyone who wants to see play live music. You can donate to the Vera Project's DIY Community Relief Fund at DIYfund.org.
This panel is part of a live streaming event for the DIY Community Fund, a COVID relief resource organized by the Vera Project to support DIY and all ages spaces across the state of Washington. Thank you for watching and learn more about the fund at DIYfund.org.
All right, hi everyone. Welcome to one of the first ever student-led Vera Project panels. First, I'm going to introduce myself a little as well as the other panelists. So I'm the co-founder of Student Art Spaces, which is a global team-led initiative breaking down barriers in the arts and making the arts more accessible for youth artists. When I was 15, I co-founded this organization without really any intention of sparking this huge movement of artists and volunteers that it has become today. At the time, all I knew was that there was no group in Seattle that existed to increase opportunity specifically by young artists for young artists. And as a Chinese American, I had my fair share of experiences feeling like I should not go into the arts or that I didn't belong in art spaces. I wanted to give other young artists the exposure and encouragement that they needed to succeed. In terms of impact, we've hosted 2 cost-free galleries, the Modern Youth Identity at Seattle Artists League and Coming Home at Shoreline City Hall recently. We also have a publication in the works exhibiting over 100 artists. We've raised over $6,000 to make youth art spaces more accessible. And most recently, we joined the Communities Rise cohort in an effort to better improve our infrastructure and secure a $5,000 grant to continue our work. All this while studying for SATs, applying to college, and trying not to drown in schoolwork. After our first gallery success, we received a flood of DMs from teens all over the country who want to start something like this in our own city. Joining us today is Shrin, who established our first ever chapter affiliate.
Hi, I'm Shrin. I'm 17 and I'm from Dallas, Texas. And I'm one of the Texas chapter leaders of Student Art Spaces. And our current project is creating a teen-curated zine over the youth reflections on the coronavirus pandemic. And that's our current project right now.
Also joining us today is 3 other members of the Student Art Spaces core team.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm 16. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I am the volunteer/chapter coordinator for SAS.
I'm Adam. I'm also 17 and from Seattle, and typically for SAS, I am in charge of a lot of writing and fundraising.
Hi, I'm George. I'm also 17. I'm from Redmond, which is just outside of Seattle, and in Student Art Spaces, I'm the website designer and some manager stuff.
Today, we're going to be talking about how our families have reacted to us pursuing art and how our communities have reacted, how other young artists can get involved with the arts, and why that's important. So starting this off, I wanted to preface this with explaining my own story with art, which began when I was really little. I have been an artist for a very long time, and I think when I was little, I didn't fully register that I wanted to pursue art as a career, but I always really enjoyed drawing and painting, and it was very unconventional for me because neither of my parents are artists. My entire family is interested in the medical field, and so I was kind of like this black sheep in my community because nobody else was really interested in being an artist. And so from that experience, I kind of took away just how important it is to have that representation because no one else in my community was interested in it. And that really deterred me from being an artist for a long time, all the way up until high school when I joined social media, because that's when I really started seeing all these other artists out there who were like me and wanted to get into the arts. They were posting their art on social media. And so I think that sums up my reaction to the way social media has transformed how artists work and how artists find ways of being paid for their work. So my first question to you guys is, what has your experience been like with that? And how do you think social media has potentially transformed your reaction to making art, whether it's positively or negatively?
I was first introduced to art at a very, very young age because I would watch my grandfather like do Chinese calligraphy or paint traditional Chinese landscape ink paintings. And I think because of his influence on my family, my parents have always supported the arts, and they've always paid for my art lessons and art supplies and funded those like many, many hours of work. But I think that personally, art isn't something that I would pursue as a career, although it's like amazing that people do. But I think one thing that has really helped me with the arts is it's helped me explore like my creative side. And because I'm definitely more into humanities and liberal arts and social sciences, but I feel like I would have never really realized that without art because I was always pressured to love math and science more. But it wasn't really until this year actually that I started loving writing and history more.
Yeah, for sure. And jumping off of that once again with the whole social media question, we have experienced a lot of changes in the art world in our generation specifically, because right now, arguably, it's easier than ever to be an artist thanks to the digital sphere where you can find work, make friends, get inspirations. But this can also have a negative effect on artists, I think, which we talked about a little in our other session, which is being really compared to other artists, feeling really compared. The accessibility of social media is also its flaw because being able to seek out all of these artists online at such an easy method is also the thing that causes people to feel a lot of negativity towards their own work because they think, why am I not being as successful as other artists, or why am I not making as much work as them? So for me personally, I've had experiences with that definitely because I follow a lot of art accounts on Instagram and I've drew a lot of inspiration from artists that I've found only through social media. I wouldn't have been able to find them if it wasn't through that tool. So along with that, just viewing their work all the time, being kind of constantly on social media to look at these posts, it's definitely shaped how I view my own work at times in a negative way because I feel like I'm not being as productive as them or whatever the case is. So I want to know your guys' thoughts on whether social media has positively or negatively impacted your work.
Going off of what you said, I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. I know that when I'm just like scrolling on my explore page for Instagram, I can see like a whole bunch of other people's artworks and they're always so inspiring and so beautiful to look at. But at the same time, like I look at theirs and I'm like, wow, theirs is so much better than mine. Like, why can't I be as talented as them? Or like, why can't my art style be like more trendy or similar to theirs? And then I feel like that's a common insecurity a lot of artists have, but I feel like you just need to reassure yourself that art is so diverse. There's like so many different forms of art, and you just have to like reassure yourself that you're unique and like your art will reflect that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely important to acknowledge that social media has this detrimental effect at times, and you might need to like take some time away from it to just focus on your own art and focus on your own improvement, because your progress may not look like other artists' progress, or your level of experience and the resources that you had initially may not be the same as what other artists had. So it's definitely important to acknowledge that. And going off of that, I think it's really important for young people to get involved with the arts, not just because it's so prevalent these days and it's so easy to use fine art as a career, or at least incorporate it into some kind of creative career, but also because it's such a powerful tool for finding out more about your own identity and just having time to work on things, especially right now during quarantine. You know, people are stuck at home, they might be bored, or they may just need an outlet to release all of these emotions that are related to this really chaotic and unprecedented situation. So art for me has definitely been a really important tool of self-expression, especially during times when I feel really insecure about my identity and I'm uncertain of what the future will look like, what I'm going to do with my life. But art has definitely been a vessel for me to communicate those feelings in a healthy and productive way. And I think it's like that for a lot of people.
I think that young people should get more involved in art because historically, a lot of these young people's narratives have been erased or completely reduced or completely erased in history. And I think as young people, and more specifically artists, we bring so many different stories and perspectives to the table. And I think art is a way for us to reclaim those narratives and amplify them. And I think what this does is sort of disrupt the conventions that are in place, because it shows you that you don't have to fit a certain type of mold to be an artist or be successful. And I think if young people value their art and their voice, they can use their creativity to make a real difference that impacts the generations after them too.
So arts is a wonderful tool for teenagers and young people, but I also think that it's really difficult for you to get started if you're, a little older, because I think part of the comparing your works to other people's works is that you really have to compare it to your own progress. Because if you look at a 6-year-old who's been drawing for a year, everyone will say like, wow, your art is so amazing. But then if you're 15 and you've been drawing for a year and your art, like, it's like, it's progressing, but it's like not at the same level as other 15-year-olds who have done art for years. And people will say, oh, you just don't have talent, or you shouldn't like pursue a career in the arts, which can be discouraging.
And on the topic of that, I think especially right now when the future of the art world may be a little rocky, considering galleries and museums, they're so reliant on a culture that requires a mass amount of people to be in that space to enjoy the artwork. And that's a huge component of even putting on those events. And I know Student Art Spaces has also experienced issues with that. We had one of our galleries canceled because of coronavirus and quarantine. And so the uncertainty revolving around that as an artist who may want to pursue showcasing their work in galleries and exhibits. And of course, we can transition to a digital sphere where we can still show work in digital exhibits and features. And of course, like Shrin's Texas chapter is doing, they're hosting an online magazine. So there's definitely ways, there's always a way, but you'll never get that same impact that you have if you're in a room with other people appreciating art on opening night of like a gallery or a museum opening. For now, I think there's going to be a new type of normal that we have to get used to, especially for artists who are exhibiting. And so young artists, especially when they feel discouraged from the art world, I think this may only exacerbate that. And I personally have had a couple concerns about that, pursuing art when it's such a tumultuous industry right now, given all the negative things that coronavirus has done to it.
And even like apart from museums, just not being, I know for me, a fun experience is always going to art shops and or material shops to like buy materials. And you can't, all of them are closed right now. And so I know a lot of people don't really have the resources to buy materials online. And so I think that's been another huge kind of blow to the art world during quarantine.
Great, then I think that wraps up our second panel. I hope you guys enjoyed what we talked about today and had some takeaways on what we as youth artists think about the future of the art world and how youth artists should get involved. If you're interested in our movement, Student Art Spaces, please check us out at studentartspaces.org. It's also linked over here. And we're also on Instagram at Student Art Spaces. We have a ton of open calls going on right now, specifically for young artists and young creatives who want to have their work showcased or get involved. And so make sure to check us out there. And once again, please donate to the Vera Project's DIY Fund in partnership with this panel. Thank you so much.